one.
We are live. This is Pitchdeck Asia, broadcasting to you from Singapore to all of Asia and beyond, bringing you some of the most interesting stories and journeys and adventures of startup founders, their backstories, how they got there, and what they're trying to do, put a dent in the universe. Now, a little bit of backstory to Pitchdeck Asia. We want to give startups a platform to share their stories because obviously, there's a lot of interesting people out there doing interesting things. And most of them we don't know about on a daily basis. We know about the big celebrities. We know about the Elon Musks and those kind of innovators in this world. But what about those people who are at the grassroots level and trying to change the universe or do something, fix a problem from their world? So hopefully we're going to explore one of those journeys today. And as with the last episode of Pitchdeck Asia, this episode is brought to you and sponsored by K Startup Grand Challenge. We're going to talk about those guys in a minute. They're back helping support the ecosystem here in Asia. So a big shout out to them. We're going to talk about K Startup Grand Challenge again in a few minutes as I introduce my next guest. So welcoming him to the studio, the first time with us here on Pitchdeck Asia, Joshua Chuah. Joshua, welcome.
Hi, Greg. Nice talking with you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our story across the board.
Yeah. So where are you today? Based in Singapore?
Yes, I'm based in Singapore. We are stuck in Singapore for the lockdown. We are glad that things are going well. We are embracing it properly, and the government is taking responsibility to make this thing as good as possible. So
Great.
we have to embrace it, and let's see how it will turn out, and let's stay positive.
For a man who's traveled a lot as well, I bet you're itching to get out there. We'll talk about some of your travels in a minute as well. I know somebody who's done not just average travels like a day trip or a weekend or taking a week somewhere, but you've gone on some real adventures as well. And that kind of gives us a nice sort of backstory to introducing the startup you're going to talk about today. So let's put it on the table. Anzene, as it's pronounced in Korea. What's Anzene about?
Yes, Anzene is a representation of three meaning for the hardware system that we're building. So it stands for three concepts that we are trying to fulfill. The smartest battery system, in which that you will have the most integrated IoT features in the smallest volume factor. So that's the smartest. The second is the most standardized, meaning that it's universal. So how do we build it? For most battery pack, it's either you serve the electric mobility or consumer electronics. So we want to combine in the smallest form factor where it can power both appliances such as consumer electronics and electric mobility, from micro mobility all the way to EVs. So there's a good standardization and you can control better on the recycling effect. And lastly, of course, the safest. Why? Because our mobility concept, during charging time, there's a lot of explosion issue. So these are the three issues or visions that we want to achieve and tackle.
Right. So as I understand it, you manufacture these batteries?
No, we are not a battery cell company. We are
No?
battery pack. So we integrate all the best solution or customized solution that we have found or research and make it to the best, smallest form battery pack in an ecosystem that we are trying to build.
Help me understand and help some of the listeners who may not know the difference. So what's the difference between a battery and a battery pack?
Okay, sure. So battery pack is consisting a lot of, it consists of cells, the electronic box, the battery management system. So taking for example, this is like a battery pack. So this is a battery pack. So or the mobile bank that we have, that is a battery pack. But inside it, there's battery cells. So we are not battery cell manufacturer. We are the technology integrator to achieve a certain perspective that we want. Yes.
Right.
So we are battery pack maker.
The battery pack allows you to manage the battery cells in a smarter way. Is that right?
Yes, you are right. So for now, most of the battery pack system that's available in the market is not that smart. So you just charge. So it causes a lot of problem after a certain time of usage. So this is where we come in to provide a standardized solution where you can manage the after effects of using like 1.5 to 2 years later on.
Okay, good. Right, Joshua, I'm really looking forward to diving into some of your journeys, literally some of your physical journeys that you've had, and really how this fits in with your bigger vision for, better, cleaner energy in e-mobility as well. And maybe we can start as how the genesis of this conversation came about. So you applied some time ago to an accelerator program in Korea, and if we can just flash up on the screen for those of us who are watching the K Startup Grand Challenge. Now we're taking you back a few months here. This was last year. You went to Korea, you went to Seoul to take part in this accelerator program. Tell us about your journey there. What happened and what was the outcome from that?
Oh, the outcome. Okay, it's very clear for us to go to the case study because of its business environment and the context that or all the opportunity that this platform will provide. We all know that South Korea is a technological driven country with a very strong capabilities and competitive advantages of produce company like Samsung, Hyundai, and SK. So it's related to us in our battery pack. So if we have any collaboration in due time, it gives a very strong fundamental statement.
Mm.
So in the context of this program, it gives us exposure to the business world and understanding whether a product can work effectively or in a market of a homogeneous market in South Korea, for example.
Mm.
Yes.
I imagine there the infrastructure for battery technology in Korea is pretty advanced, isn't it? Obviously,
Yeah,
because
it's
of
one
all
of
the.
the, I mean, it's the lead, one of the leading countries in the whole world. There are only two providers, I would say. It's either South Korea or China. So to have entry into South Korea itself is a very big advantage for us. So we were given a lot of opportunity to share our technology, and it has been a big exposure for us for sure.
Excellent. So shout out to the K Startup Grand Challenge. They are open for applications this year as well. The website is there on the screen, reading it out. If you are listening in, you can go to. Shout out to k-startupgc.org. That's k-startupgc.org. Like yourself, I mean, with Joshua, if you are involved in tech, especially deep tech or electronics, obviously this is going to be really valuable to you. So that's the K Startup Grand Challenge. Korea is not the beginning or the end of your adventures. Before we look at some of the data concerning your market size and really the whole market size here in Asia and beyond when it comes to clean energy, you've had quite an experience. I'm really fascinated by this. It's because when we were digging around doing our research for this program, we like to find out a bit about our guests beyond the products and the startups that they're involved in, because it helps us sort of connect with them and understand the why. I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joshua, that you've had some interesting adventures on bikes, push bikes, cycles in your time. And this is not like I say, doing a week in the Alps. You've done some crazy adventures. Tell us a
Uh,
bit about some of those. Maybe you share the adventure where you crossed Asia, I think 14 countries at one point, right?
yes, it happens when I was still a student during my university days. So in short, I was trying to live a dream or adventure. So I built a bamboo bike, and the theme of the expedition was called the Circle of Life Expedition. Is to reconnect the epicenter of Silk Road. So it was in Central Asia. Therefore, the team was there to build the most ecological bike to rediscover Central Asia and travel from Central Asia and bring back to Singapore. So as we were planning the adventure, we were thinking that most of these so-called long trips will be either done on a steel bike or aluminum bike. What is the one more step to push the boundary even better? So we discussed that why not a bamboo bicycle made of bamboo. So the expedition, one of the aims was to expose not just the epicenter of Central Asia, but to discover the possibility between the ecosystem product and a viable business model. So it's not just to satisfy my young urge to do an adventure, but also to serve a purpose, to bring back a possible business model back home and make it a viable business model. So I've been in this round for many years on bicycle, electric bicycle, and doing business opportunity on this ground level. Yes.
Mm. What was the hardest part of that? Was it actually doing the cycling and crossing all the countries, or was it actually manufacturing a bamboo bike? I don't know what that entails. I'm a cyclist myself, and
Right.
manufacturing a bike is a carbon frame that's manufactured in a press, effectively,
Right.
and the whole thing can be manufactured from a mold. Like
Right. Yes.
building a bike from scratch in bamboo, I don't know how difficult that is. Help us understand.
It's more difficult for sure because every tube is not consistent. So you
Mm,
have to find the balance to put the tubes together onto a frame. Yeah. But you see, because of this downside, it makes each unique bike or every bike frame unique by itself. So this bike that you bought or you own is customized for yourself. So that is the benefit or the advantages that you can have from a bamboo bike. So each bike is unique.
mm.
Yes.
And does it have the flexibility? Because I imagine if
Yes,
it's,
it has. It
it
absorbs
does?
vibration very well because
Really?
bamboo grass has a lot of. I mean, the wall of the bamboo actually
Ah,
absorb the vibration a lot.
right,
So
right.
in the context of the adventure, I guess we all travel. Is the difficult part is not climbing the mountains or cycling from one point to another. It was actually the planning. Yeah. So once after the planning, you go on the road. Everything was amazing and magical.
Yeah,
So that's how I found my fundamental or found my core reason where I would like to stick to two wheels, more ecological, how to make an impact. And as we go, as the society goes electrification or electrify, there's a mismatch between the battery packs and the products that we are using. For example, electric mobility. So this is where we are trying with our prior experiences to find the best uh, solution that has a viable business model to serve the consumer market.
mm. Well, let's switch gears and have a look at that market itself. If you can have a look at the pitch deck and bear in mind that some people are listening, so they won't see all the data here. I think on slide one, you've got on your pitch deck, you talk about the market size here. So if you can flash that up, that'd be great. So basically, here we have, Joshua, the market size of 22 billion. Is this in China alone? What are we talking about here? Is this for e-mobility or is this for battery packs? What are we talking about, market size?
We are talking about the battery pack system that we have. So to the smallest hardware system that we have is a battery pack. So
Mm,
our ecosystem is very simple. So it consists of one battery pack, universal battery pack, and a universal charging station. What does it mean by universal? So it has the features to stack it up and power bigger power requirement depending on the equipment. So let's go back one more step ahead again. So we are looking at the smallest module, which is the battery pack. So let's look at the market size. So battery pack market for the smallest battery pack that we have, as you can see from my screen, it can act as a power bank battery. So this has a potential a global market size of 19 billion plus. Why? Because it can power both AC and DC devices. Yeah. So this means that the portability of power is not an issue anymore. As more especially during this pandemic, the demand for online services and mobile lifestyle will definitely increase as we go on. So this smallest module or battery pack is also the heartbeat of electric mobility. So if you look at the context of China market, it has an electric mobility size of about 22 billion plus. Even though it's saturated, we know that 30 million plus new electric mobility will be bought to replace their old bike. And because of our universal function of the battery pack that we have, we can tap to the 300 million plus user in China. Yes. So that
mm.
is how we quantify the market size that our smallest hardware product can serve. Yeah,
So to clarify, you're creating battery packs that have multiple uses. Is that correct? Not just mobility.
exactly. Yes, you are right. So this battery pack can also serve as a portable power on the go solution demand.
Right. But
Take
what,
a for
what what
example.
is the benefit of that? I mean, why? I mean, I'm asking questions not being an expert. Why would that be of benefit when it seems, for example, that unless it's just production scale benefit, is that you would have certain devices tailored to certain needs. For example, it would make sense to create a battery pack specifically for a scooter or specifically
Yes,
for a fan, for example.
exactly. So, I mean, okay, let's look at a consumer product first before we leap into a electric mobility. So it has a standard for portable consumer electronics appliances will be the AA battery. So it's easier to recycle and to collect back. But when we leap, as the society progresses to an electrification era, a lot of devices will get unit battery. So this is where every new mobility or bigger stuff you need a dedicated battery pack system. So company supplier A will produce their own solution pack. Company B will produce their own solution, another battery pack. So this creates a big issues on the collection part or the recycling part. It's hardly to get sustainable in terms of ecological. And
Mm.
what about consumer problems? So the consumer problems are two in electric mobility. There are two immediate problems. One is that after about 2 years, battery pack normally dies faster because there's no smart management system to manage the charging, and there's distant anxiety. So this is a very common problems that people are facing because we do know that certain part is that the sellers or the companies of electric mobility, the battery pack may be the only one that can earn some profit. So the lifespan of that, they will promise about 1.5 to 2 years. So user every year has to pay about $200 or even spend about 2 to 6 hours to buy a new battery pack or charge their battery pack. So this ecosystem that we are building is to replace the buying of new battery, managing it better, recollecting, recycling back the old battery cells, and reduce any charging time. And lastly, user would not need to charge battery pack anymore. So there's no risk of explosion. Yeah, so
Mm.
these are the three immediate problems that we are trying to solve or provide for the mobility sector, which is universal features to expand to the lower tier, which is the consumer electronics and maybe energy storage. So these are the placement that we are providing. Yes.
So now the focus is mobility, and
Our ecosystem, we will focus on the ecosystem. So our first step, we will build up the mobility sharing batteries service for a specific customer segment.
so yeah,
Uh, that,
what does that mean? So help me
so yes, we
explain.
will be providing the battery swapping for electric mobility. So we
Okay,
have planned for a specific customer segment, which is the factory staff from the factory in China.
right. So you're
Yes,
targeting right now. So I understand you're targeting factory staff in China and their mobile scooters, right?
yes, you are
And
right. Yes.
giving them better service with the battery packs that they're currently using. You're giving them a better
Exactly.
option.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's an
And
immediate solution we are providing. So the consumer of the old electric motorbikes or electric scooter, they don't need to buy a new one. They don't need to spend $200 for a new battery pack. They don't need to charge anymore. Charging their electric scooter. So this
right,
ecosystem that we provide, they can save up to $200, save about 2 hours of charging time, and there's no risk of uh, fire explosion from charging. Yeah, so
right,
these are the immediate solution we can provide to the targeted segment that we have selected. Yes.
right. And the problem they are facing as consumers right now with their bikes, their scooters is lifetime life cycle of the battery, the
Yes, and
danger of exploding.
exactly. And last one is the distant anxiety. Electric
Right.
mobility, after 1 year or 1.5 years, the charging is lower and the
Mm.
distance you can cover is shorter. So we want to provide a platform to just manage the battery pack. Yes.
Yeah. What is that distance anxiety like in reality? What does it mean?
Okay,
Like
I
if you,
mean, a new motorbike, you can travel about 50. You can charge like 2 hours, but after like a half year to, okay, maybe about 9 months to 1 year later, right? The charging time will take about 3 hours. The distance travel, it takes about, maybe there's a deduction of about 20 to 30%. So for factory staff worker, it's okay, but it's a big detriment or disadvantages for the online food delivery services because the
uh,
downtime is big. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and the usage is much higher as well. I imagine
Yes.
their life cycle is going to be shorter. What is the issue there? Is it an issue just of, help me understand it? Is it a hardware issue or is it like, why do batteries degrade so fast anyway? What is the issue? Are they just not managed properly? And if that's the case, then what do you actually do
Uh,
to make that better?
the issue is not really an issue, it's just a culture because I mean we just started into an electrification era. So the supply chains are still very independent of themselves. So for the supply chains of electric mobility, right, supplier will just produce their e-bikes. The battery will be another guy. So there's no or another supplier. So there's no a lot of in-depth cross collaboration to manage a good electric mobility.
Hmm.
And the heart and soul of e-mobility, right, is the battery pack. So this is where we want to, yeah, to solve the issue faced by customer in the core product of all electrification. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you have a look at your pitch deck, there's some pictures in here that help people visualize the solution. If we jump into the pitch deck, it's on slide 3, I think, with the charging station and the universal battery pack here. You've got some numbers in there for those people who may be electronics engineeringly minded. They can have a look at the spec for the battery pack as well. There's a picture of the charging station. These come together. Is it necessary that they use the charging station that you provide as well as part of the ecosystem as an extra add-on? How does it work?
So ecosystem, so this is how we fix it. We are looking at how we fix it. If you go to one more slide, you can see the concept of yes. So our charging station in the smallest form factor, if you see the red one, it has a 6 battery pack system that can power a slow light electric mobility, a slow light electric vehicle. But the individual battery pack that we have, depending on the specification, one can power a standard e-scooter, e-bikes, or a moped. But when you can stack up to 3 to power an electric motorcycle, yes. So the universal features allows the cater of a lot of different electric mobility, and the independent battery pack, as we were sharing just now, because of the form factor that is so small and the light that we have, the weight that is about 2 kg, it can power standard appliances to AC and DC. So you see on the lower left-hand corner, so the red color represents the standard battery pack. You can use it to rent it out on the ecosystem, for example, to power your laptop, power your handphone, or power a power tools. Yes. So this is the ecosystem that we have. So can user buy an independent battery pack? Yes, you can do that too, where you can use it as a portable power to power up all kinds of stuff you need back home. I mean, portable power, you know that because our lifestyle is getting more mobile, we use a lot more electronics product. Portable power is a big market, but most of the portable power is based on power bank because of smartphone. But as our electronics consumption of power devices gets bigger, it requires bigger power for sure. So there is a growing market for bigger portable power market size of products. Yes.
What are you doing differently here? There must be thousands of people trying to solve this problem. What is your approach? Do you have access to some kind of technology that other people don't have access to? Are you thinking about the problem differently? Do you have access to certain kind of resources that they don't have? What is it that you're doing differently?
Uh, okay, the main approach that we are doing is to integrate all the best tech that we have and customize into the smallest form factor that we have, so that the user can get the smallest battery pack that is smart enough to understand the consumer, the energy input, their consumer behavior of energy, and have a more empowered choice of using the type of energy they can have. Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to dig deeper into understanding what is defensible about that to the competition, in the sense that what's to stop a Xiaomi or a Samsung or any Chinese manufacturer just taking that technology and replicating. What are you doing different? Is it at the software level or what? Because I don't understand battery technology
No
enough, but
problem. The hardware level and the software level. So let me dissect a bit. The hardware level is that we make it to the smallest form factor. That is the hardest because every independent technology is by itself. So what we do is we integrate all the technology. So what are they? The communication, the 4G, the gyrometer, the accelerometer, the what? The understanding of energy consumption. Yes, all these IoT devices into the smallest size beneath our battery pack. Yeah, so that is a hardware level. And on top of that, that is a battery pack. What about our charging station? So our charging station in our team, we call it an energy router. So it's like a gateway to form like a key to the grid, to the city grids. So this ecosystem allows to form a more resilient microgrid system, microgrid network for more for decentralized energy to go into the city itself. Yes. So this is on the hardware. So so with these hardware features that we have on the charging station and the universal battery pack, we have a few main competitive advantages to give a barrier to entry. So take for example, at this point of time, we are not new in, for example, battery sharing for electric mobility. So our advantages are we are allowed to adapt to all electric mobility because we can retrofit. and we can allow more than 4 to 5 different forms of electric mobility. The current solution, you must use an independent design. So we can tap to the bigger market size at the shortest sales cycle. Second, our hardware, as we were saying, is an integration to the smallest form factor, not just the battery pack, but also the charging station. Because our form factor is smallest, our cost of infrastructure has about 35 to 40% of advantage. This means that when we scale up, our cost to reach out to our market is smaller. Yes, and lastly, because of the technology that we have in terms of hardware and software, we allow different forms of revenue stream or business development, not just swapping of battery, where you can have a revenue stream, you can rent it out. Like the mobile bank, you rent it, you swap it. These are two different business models. Yes, and you can also store lower energy during the higher peak time or store renewable energy. So it has the AI to do all these things to allow the business model to grow organically and have a defensive model with the current competitors or new competitors upcoming. Yes.
Who would be your competitors in this market?
Let's go direct. Okay, battery swapping is not new. So in China, there are 2 to 3 main competitors. Worldwide, there's a good one, which is Gogoro. Let's talk about Gogoro. Gogoro is the electric mobility seller of electric scooter, and also providing the hardware ecosystem for their consumer or their user to swap the battery. So it's a complete ecosystem package. But as we can see, there are similar models in China. For example, Yihuandian. Yeah, so that's another example. But the solution that they provided from these companies or competitor, right? You have to use their electric mobility. So this is where we come in. Even though you have an old bike, you can hop in and use on our ecosystem platform, where you can tap on the solution that we are providing. You no need to care about your battery pack. You no need to care about diesel anxiety. You no need to charge anymore. And the issues of getting explosion from the fires. Getting explosion from the battery pack. Yeah. So that is the main advantage that we have, the universal features that we have. Yes.
Okay. When I think about clean energy and I think about building out an ecosystem, not directly in your space, but for example, if you take Tesla and building out the charging stations as well, even in China, for example, like NIO has building out charging stations or partnering to do it, I think, with their electric cars as well. What is the challenge with that? Because obviously, you need an ecosystem to make it worthwhile for somebody to buy a bike that can charge at this station, and at the same time, you need enough bikes to make the station economically feasible. How are you managing that? First of all, when you look at people like Tesla and NIO, how are they solving that problem, building out ecosystems and this sort of decentralized electric network, or this source of energy as you talk about? How are they doing it? And then also, what sort of lessons have you learned from your experience of building out a network?
Okay, it's a chicken and egg issue. So these big companies, right, in order to people to buy their product, which is the electric vehicle or mobility, they have to allow the infrastructure to be there. So as a small company, we have to stay lean. Therefore, we have selected China to be our first proof of concept, because the infrastructure is really there. It's not just a private company that has to build the infrastructure. You need the government to come in. It's a lot of stakeholders coming together. So we can see that the take-up rate in US is lower at certain city, but in China, it's a different ball game, because the private company and government together will go in and work together to build a lot of infrastructure for the charging station. So for any cities out in the world, it's not just an involvement of a private company. It needs a strong support from the government, and this is why the infra is not just charging infra, but also the old and aging grid system that we have. So it's a big problem that is trying to solve, trying to find the balance. So it's an involvement of a lot of tiers. So to push this ecosystem, as Grandma, as you have mentioned, it takes a lot of years to make it happen. Yeah, so that's why China has an advantage in this, because there's a lot of big involvement into pushing of the infrastructure from the government standpoint, and companies are taking up to build all this infrastructure for the new and upcoming market, which is electric mobility. So we are tapping on this thing to prove our concept of our ecosystem. And we are not so depending on that, because we our charging station is actually leveraging on the new and upgrade infrastructure that they have instead of building a new one. Yes. So this gives us an advantage to shorten our sales cycle, to tap on or to allow the customer to use our solution. Yeah.
Okay, and you're live in China now, as you say.
Yes, we have a China team we have a China team. We started August 2018. We have
Mm,
R&D is done there. So we have a team of 7. Yeah.
mm,
But I'm being a Singaporean, because of the lockdown and the pandemic, I'm back home. And once it's better, I will fly there. I mean, I will be back in China to start the second phase, which is the outreach to the ecosystem. Yeah,
right.
because we are more and ready to put our ecosystem into the market.
Okay. Do you have active users? Do you have like, have you validated this? Do you have charging stations out there? Where are you now with
Not
your?
yet. Yes, not yet. So the first proof of concept with our LOI will be the last quarter of this year. We
Mm,
are working with 2 factories. Yeah. So far we have started the assembly line and preparing for a batch production of 200 units of the battery pack, and to finalize the first phase of our charging station. So then we can start the simplest ecosystem that we can have for the selected target segment that we have. So it will come in at the last quarter of the year. So the whole
okay.
plans has been delayed for about 3 months to 4 months. Why? Because of this uncertainty that the whole world is facing. So we have no choice. But fortunately, because China is big, and our place is not that affected, and the factories are back, so we can start this thing. It allows us to catch back the lost time that we have suffered.
Mm. So the beginning of 2021, you're now going to be going to market and trialing this with initial users. What kind of numbers do you think you'll be working with in terms of charging stations and users?
Okay, got. So the all LOI programs that we have with 2 factories, right? We are working with 100 to 200 users from the factory, so they are staff. So once we link up and troubleshoot between the linkage between the software and the hardware with our factory, next year, March 2021, we have a city use case of 3,000 users. So we expand that so-called ground, which is we stick it to factory to a city level. Yes.
Mm. You
So
say
we
LOI with the factories, so the factories themselves are commissioning this rather than the individual
Oh,
users.
that is another project, yeah. But we will use factory because of because we started our R&D in China, right? We are very fortunate that all our solution, the customized hardware solution, we are
Mm,
able to work with the top 500 companies in China. So our supplier network in China is quite peculiar for a
mm,
young company, a lean company like us. Big companies from them, they were willing to work with us to ensure that this ecosystem could be set up
mm,
properly and in a very systematic, strong way into the market. Because we can't just depend on ourselves. We need a lot of different partners because it's the entire supply chain to work together to set up the new standard and the protocols for this ecosystem.
mhm, mhm. Okay, very interesting. It's a big challenge as well. What's the bigger vision with this, Joshua? Where I know you're talking about the charging station and the universal battery pack, the ecosystem you're building, really as a proof of concept for maybe a bigger challenge that lies away. Is it to take it geographically into new markets, or is it to then think about this as the beachhead into other services and other products that people may use built around these ecosystems that you built?
Yes, yeah. I mean, there's a bigger vision for sure. I mean, we have to stay ahead of time, and this gives us a drive to the team that we have. So the fundamental is actually the ecosystem of the electric mobility, and then we will look into the ownership of energy because if you look on the whole at the whole level of this ecosystem, it's actually a decentralized and distributed energy network system. What does this mean? Clean energy technology is already there. So you can so-called generate energy at a very low price, but to bring it into a city, that's a challenge. The cost is still high. So
Mm,
with our hardware ecosystem, we are setting up the base level to allow people or citizen or any people to use clean energy at a lower cost and an easier way. Yeah.
yeah.
So that is a bigger game. So for example, you can own the energy asset, yeah, because it's you know the transparency of the data. the system allows it, and you can also uh, do a peer-to-peer energy trading. Yes, so this is a bigger game of the ecosystem that we are building, and we have taken the harder approach to go from the hardware solution to find a customer to form a customized solution, to set a standard, then to look at the software level. Yeah,
Mm.
that's why it took a bit of time. So now we are into the second year, but very fortunately, as we were sharing, the last quarter of year we will set up about 200 use cases with our factory workers, or not with our factory worker, with our supplier factory staff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to track the evolution of the ecosystem you're building and how that creates knock-on and secondary innovations around that network that the decentralized network you're building. And if you look at, for example, like the history of electricity, you go back 100 years,
Yeah.
like now you've got a situation where the supply of electricity, and importantly, even though it has become a little bit of a stereotype when it comes to innovation, but the light bulb had itself this real pivotal role in building out an ecosystem, because the fact that you could give people light bulbs and you could stick a light bulb in a factory and that factory could illuminate a worker, and that worker could now keep the machines running all night, and that worker could then come home in the evening and would need a light bulb in his house, and then would need electric items in his house to, because he didn't have time because he was working these long hours. It created this ecosystem that built around, and they talk about the light bulb as this beachhead product which created the ecosystem. So it's
Yeah.
going to be interesting to see if that is what you're having, some kind of pivotal role in. Is, will your e-mobility scooter be that beachhead, that
No.
thing that everybody uses?
Will this universal battery pack be the smallest module to help city to transform to a smart city? Yeah,
Mm.
because it can help in a smart urban solution or the smart IoT energy network. So this is so-called, we call it the energy key, to help us to transform into a more dynamic city network. Yeah.
What will it actually look like? How will that change things? Because so much, for example, if you think about the cities now, the cities that we have are built a design around travel and cars, right? And a
Yes.
lot of that is to do, that has been designed around the logistics of cars and parking cars and fueling cars, etc., right? And if you change the DNA of that, it changes the structure of a city, and it provides opportunities as well. What will happen if your vision comes to reality? How will that change cities? I mean, obviously they'll be more efficient, but it just won't be look the same. I don't think it will be the same city on the face. Things will change as well. Like we'll learn, for example, okay, maybe I don't need to do this anymore. Maybe I don't need to have that thing in my life anymore. What will change?
Uh, that's a very interesting question. What we are looking at ourselves is not we are trying to disrupt. We are like a supplement to this solution. So it helps a person to have access to the greener energy network by not disrupting the entire infra. It's a consistent effort from the government and the private sector. So us being the private sector, we think our innovation can supplement to the resiliency of the grid, because of the aging grid and the world population is increasing, and the urge to not the urge the need to use bigger electronics is increasing too. We can have we Our hardware is a tangible solution to allow user to have access to the grid and supplement the energy network system. So we are not looking that we can disrupt or change the entire network. That is too big for us. We are just a supplement to ensure that the network, the data is more diversified and strong. And on top of that, we actually are trying to help. I mean, business model is the most important for private companies. It's the viable business model. It's not about division and that. So we are looking at the very basic, a viable business model. But you see, our hardware, we are helping on another context. We are not selling an e-mobility. We are helping smart city to collect understanding on the user behavior on all the loose different mobility. Yeah, so for example, you're riding a bike, riding another bike, another e-mobility, another stuff. So we can collect all this loose data. We are not trying to, so the smart city approach is that you tackle the public transportation. We are not that part. We are trying to collectively we are trying to collectively connect the different e-mobility user on the mobility side and the appliances to make these so-called different bits and pieces connected so that we can better manage the energy network's efficiency. Yeah. So
Okay.
this is where we are playing on the bigger, grander vision. Yeah. But pragmatically, we are solving 3 problems for e-mobility and the portable power for user.
Excellent. Joshua, it's been really interesting hearing a bit about your project and what you're working on there as well. I'm sure those people that may be interested in what you're doing would be interested to know how they could reach out to you. What is the best way for people to contact you? LinkedIn, email, what works? What are you most
Everything works. Yeah. We live in a connected world. Yeah. LinkedIn, email, and mobile.
All right.
Yeah.
So people can link on LinkedIn. Tell Joshua that you watched this video or listened to this podcast and wanted to reach out. In particular, what kind of messages are you looking for? Who are you looking to talk to?
Now we are in our fundraising time, so we are trying to shorten the time to reach out to the market. So if there's any interested partners to be our stakeholder to push out the market faster in terms of our R&D and reaching out to selected market, we hope to reach out to this group of people. Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Venture caps, fund angel investor. So we are now at this stage. Yeah. So we
Okay.
just opened up our fundraising like 3 weeks ago to ensure that when we scale up in the next year, we have enough resources to ensure that we can stay for at least 1 year of runway. Yes. So it's a
Okay.
constant work on lean startup, or companies. Yes.
Got it. All right, good. Well, the details are there. Reach out to Joshua Chuah if you're interested, finding out more about his journey and also what they are trying to do at Anzene, as it is in Korea. Thank you so much for joining us today. Share with us before you go the website that people can find you.
What do?
Anzene.
How should? So it's www.anzene.com. Yeah, I think it will float
Fantastic.
out here, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Joshua, thank you very much. Thanks for
Thank
joining
you.
us on Pitchdeck Asia today. All the details there for those people that want to follow up. Pitchdeck Asia is about sharing the stories of startups across Asia, all different kinds of startups, all different kinds of levels. If you feel that you want to make a difference and share your story, then go to pitchdeck.asia to find out more. You can not only find out more about the startups that have been on this show, you can also find out how you can get on the show yourself. There's details how you can apply. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Joshua. All
Thank
the
you very
best
much.
with your
Thank you so
journey.
much for hosting us. Have a good day.